Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation, putting our hopes in the coming silver shortage. That's the topic of today's video. We're going to explore the silver shortage to come and exactly what that means, or exactly what it doesn't mean. I think it's an interesting topic to kind of explore further, as you've heard me talk about the increased demand in India and many other places as well too. We know there is a deficit to some extent based off of reports, but let's kind of look into a little bit further and maybe explore exactly why perhaps this may not necessarily lead to higher prices, at least not as high as some believe. Yes, this metal, silver, it has perplexed us for many years here, especially in the era of social media and instant communication, where we can talk and analyze different aspects of this metal. Most of us have been wrong when it comes to price and where silver is going to go, especially compared to gold. Gold is one of those metals that it tends to be more stable in its outlook, and essentially it does act as that ultimate hedge or savings account. And we do see at times where gold does go fall in price, but most of us see that as a buying opportunity. And of course, that same methodology can be applied to silver too. But make no mistake, it has certainly perplexed and dumbfounded us for quite a while. For many of us, thought that silver was going to go quite a bit higher than it has been over the last few years. And when we're shocked in some sense to see it kind of stabilize down, even to the point where it got below $14 an ounce. I never thought when I started this channel that I would ever see that happen, especially considering the highs that it went to. But upon further studying what was going on in the markets and some of the reasons why, now it makes actually much better sense than before. And notwithstanding, there are things like manipulation that do occur, and that's something we have to take into consideration, and that is not going away for sure as we explore some of these ideas with the coming shortage in silver supply. Now, I am admitting that I do think, especially based off my last video talking about it, especially with India that's going on, and learned a little bit more about it than what was discussed in that video, that India itself had put some restrictions on gold. And so therefore, Indians are moving more towards silver, and that actually had done that before as well. But things can change. Things can change very quickly. India as a culture values precious metals, gold and silver especially, for a lot of different things. And I've been doing a little bit of research, and the Silver Institute has talked about the Indian silver demand. And it's seen a lot of expansion really over the last 5 or 6 years. And so they have been increasing a lot of silver for quite a while, but it has not affected the price too much. In fact, I would dare say probably not at all. And why is that? Well, I think it's because though there's a cultural expansion and even an industrial expansion and use of silver out there, silver is one of these metals that is amazing at how much it is being used in technology. And the innovations that are occurring with silver is quite impressive, and it's a metal to be proud of to hold just for those reasons alone as a commodity. But make no mistake, people are seeing it as a commodity. And notwithstanding, we are seeing some good economic times by many measures out there. And that is not to say that things can't turn. In fact, most people, In fact, if we're honest with ourselves, we are overdue for a recession in this country, and in the rest of the world, they are already seeing signs of recession or full bore into recession, the point where banks and central banks are doing Keynesian type of stimulus measures, such as quantitative easing in their countries, negative interest rates, and the like. We're moving in that direction in this country from a central banking standpoint, which means that we could be coming into a recession sometime soon. And if the United States hits into a recession, that could have an effect around the world. And the fact that the other nations around the world are near or in a recession already is having an effect on the United States. And so the reason I bring that up is because when that happens, then you're going to see silver being used less. The demand for it will be decreased in industrial applications, because we all understand that silver is primarily mined as a byproduct of other metals. And primary silver mining has eased up quite a bit, and there are debatable reasons as to why. I believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that it is not cost beneficial to do so, especially when you consider to mine an ounce of silver in a primary silver mine costs upwards of $12, $13, $14 an ounce. And silver is not sitting too much above that, even though it has gone up some. It is going to very soon get to the point where it's going to become lucrative again to tap into some nice silver deposits, because I think there was a time where there are certain primary silver miners who are waiting for the right time to tap into these silver mines, so that it becomes economically viable for them to do so. And that's the thing that's got to be considered here as we're looking for potential increased demand or continued increased demand in India and other applications. ETPs, electronic traded products for exchange traded funds, ETFs, and silver futures. There's increased in that world too. You've heard me talk about that on this channel. And so those type of things that aren't necessarily tested, by the way, in those markets. The electronic markets really will probably never be tested. In other words, people aren't going to buy an ETF of silver and cash it out for the physical. That's not what those markets are for. They're for quick moving around, high liquidity, to be able to cash it out into fiat currency. And by the way, speaking of which, the future of the dollar and what we are doing with our dollar here, with these repo markets and the like, where it's kind of scary to see what's going on there. However, when you take into consideration the hegemony of the dollar, that is still there, even though many nations are trying to break away, and that's why they're accumulating more gold in central banks. That's the key word here, gold, as the ultimate hedge. You don't see them stockpiling silver. In fact, less nations are doing that now. They're selling their silver stocks off. And if the price continues to increase, they may sell more. Because, it's much more costly to store silver than gold, especially considering the high gold to silver ratio that we're seeing at around 84 to 85 to 1. Do I believe that silver prices will go up because of this coming shortage that we talked about here, especially if things continue in India? And that's the thing, if they continue in India. And if the economy continues to go at a pace to affect that demand that for electronics and those uses in the biomedical field and solar arrays. The solar situation is increasing, but it could decrease if there's an economic downturn. All that silver that's mined for use in the solar panels is something to be noted. And it's something to recognize that silver is not going to be recovered anytime soon. When I say that, it doesn't mean it's not recoverable. You saw me post a video quite a while ago trying from an old solar panel that I got from the person who put the company who put my solar panels up. I'm thinking maybe I could strip some of that silver out. It's not easy to do. In fact, unless you have special equipment, more than likely you're not going to get that silver out. But it doesn't mean it's not possible to recover that silver. The fact that you can see it means that there are ways to get that stuff out of there. Solar panels are replaced, and some do go bad. In fact, I've got another panel that needs to be replaced. And so there is some recycling, but notwithstanding, solar panels do last a long time, and for the most part, that silver is not going to be recovered anytime soon. That does not mean that it's going to contribute that much to the shortage, because they're going to mine more silver. And if there's a continued increase in demand for silver, more than likely there's going to be a continued increased demand for nickel and for copper and the other metals from which silver is mined as a byproduct. And that's the key to think about here, people. There's a balance in these views upon the shortage in silver. That shortage in silver that we could see, and is possible, may not create this massive explosion of price that some people salivate towards. In other words, that's not necessarily going to translate from one to the other. I don't believe we're going to see a sustained price increase in silver until we see a sustained increase in demand for silver in the bullion and in the physical markets. In other words, when you see more and more of these being sold to the public, and by the way, most of that bullion and demand is in North America, mainly because of, I think, culturally, gold is kind of seen more in the East, typically, although obviously in India it's moving a different direction, obviously, but it had done that before, and that's kind of eye-opening. But make no mistake, Europeans are hit by the VAT, the value-added tax, which makes buying this pretty much cost prohibitive. In fact, not only that, but also here in the United States, when you have different bullion dealers, almost all of them are required now, based off the Supreme Court decision, to collect taxes for the states from which the buyers reside. And so when you take that into account, then that leaves you with potentially less demand, and it's going to suppress, I believe, demand for these metals. Now, also take into account that people's memories are long in some cases, because there's some people who have bought silver back in 2011, 2012, 2013, thinking that it was going to continue to really go up. And I was one of those to a point. I was, in a sense, naive, but I've wisened up. And I would encourage the community to be cautious when it comes to the coming silver shortage. Do I believe it could happen? Potentially. But those markets work themselves out very quickly, with mining and with recessions and things like that, economic downturns, which means there'll be less demand for the industrial side. And the very fact that, during the times when the prices were up high before, there was a bottleneck in getting the silver out there, which is what caused the 2011, part of what caused the 2011 rise in prices. Make no mistake, you could go pretty much anywhere and buy silver. That's not going to change anytime soon. You're going to be able to buy silver no matter what. In my view, there's a lot of silver out there. And that's the thing to keep in mind as you look into these type of things. Do your diligence, do your homework. It's one of those things where, yes, I believe silver is ultimately a wealth preserver. When I say ultimately, that means that there's obviously going to be some times, because of the volatility of the metal and the duality of it, where it will not protect your wealth in a given period of time between any two dates. But that's just it. You're looking at 2 dates, from the time you buy to the time you speculate selling. But if you hold it for the long term, these floors are going to get higher. Those resistance points are going to go higher, and therefore you will preserve your wealth in the very long term. That is done through dollar cost averaging and the like. It's a patient game with silver for sure. And it's not a game, it's a way to save. So think about it in those terms, and I hope you found this video useful. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to y'all for watching, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.